I just returned from Washington, D.C., where I was so frustrated to see the lack of unity among Republicans in creating a viable health care plan. Growing up in a small town in northern Wisconsin, my father instilled values consistent with what the Republican Party has traditionally stood for, and re-energizing those values would serve our country well. However, I believe in today's turmoil, we all should put our party affiliation aside and work together in a nonpartisan way to fix the country first. A critical issue facing our country is a massive increased intrusion by the federal government as Washington politicians seek to do with health care what they have achieved in our auto, financial, and housing sectors. Do we really want Washington administrators coming between us and our doctors? Do we want the federal government collecting and controlling our personal medical records? The economic stimulus bill funds $1 billion to create a government-run health research panel akin to those in Canada and the UK, which deny certain procedures, certain medical procedures, to control cost. Do we really want a government-run HMO? The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimated a $1.6 trillion price tag, which inspired our leaders in Washington to propose $600 billion in new taxes and additional squeezes on Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement to doctors and providers. The National Healthcare Anti-Fraud Association estimates over $60 billion of federal health care dollars are lost each year to bureaucratic waste, fraud, and corruption. In New York, 150 men receive maternity benefits. In Florida, more than 1.1 million was paid for fraudulent services for a single HIV patient, Social Security Administration sent 8,000 checks to dead people, according to a recent Senate report. Another example of the contrast between private sector and government solutions is when I stayed in the shelters with Katrina volunteers. I saw firsthand Walmart, Home Depot, FedEx providing chainsaws, generators, medicine, bottled water, and I saw the Southern Baptists, Red Cross and Salvation Army volunteers serving hot chili. Private sector responses excelled over government efforts. We must rediscover the core values that made America great, and it wasn't big government. The Judeo-Christian ethic undergirded our nation's founding, where responsibilities were stressed over rights. We are our brother's keeper. Our tradition of Good Samaritan efforts diminish in countries where people look to the state for so many needs. The Bible tells us, carry one another's burdens, and in this you fulfill the law of Christ. The question we all should ask is, whose burden am I carrying? Here in Jackson, Wyoming, my friend Dr. Rich Sugden opens his office every Thursday to care for the uninsured, all free of charge. Dr. Crouch in Tulsa, Oklahoma has a mobile medical van that treats 7,000 uninsured people a year. Together, we must develop the middle majority of America that looks beyond party politics and puts country first. Millions of Americans voiced their dissent against big government in the tax day tea parties. We need more than another event. We need a movement. Over 1,200 tea parties are planned for 4th of July. I strongly encourage you to host your own mini tea parties in the weeks ahead. Lynn and I will do so, and we'll discuss these issues. Over hot dogs and hamburgers, or at your local watering hole, host 10 or more of your friends and then encourage them to do the same. Sometimes we think our lone voice isn't heard. Yet remember Rosa Parks, the slender seamstress who said, "I'm not going to the back of the bus anymore." The fact today that we have an African-American president can very well be traced to the many voices that joined that singular act. Together, let's prove that for you and me, responsibility is more than a buzzword. It's how we live our lives. Let's rekindle John F. Kennedy's exhortation to ask not what our country can do for us, but what we can do for our country. Remember how the immigration bill and the Dubai port deal fell apart because of public outcry? You and I need to start a similar brush fire that will spread to D.C. to stop the erosion of the core values for which our founding fathers sacrificed. Make sure your senator knows where you stand. I'm glad to be able to spend a little time to send these videotape messages to you, and I hope it might inspire you to make some small sacrifice yourself so you can reinforce President John F. Kennedy's vision of a nation populated by people of responsibility. Thanks for listening, and God bless.